Welcome back to Sapphire's Unscripted, ladies and gentlemen. We are grinding here because all of us have things to do. We are literally going to give you a straight to the point podcast. It is coming out on a Friday, I believe, so it won't fry your brains after work on a Friday, or you can enjoy this quick episode when you're at work. But getting straight to the point, guys. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button, please. We appreciate your support and we love it. But getting straight to the point, guys. As we know, tomorrow there's going to be Champions Cup rugby on, even starting tonight. I'm speaking as if we are at Friday already. And guys, I'm so disappointed with the Bulls. They have sent a weakened side to Bristol. That's not even the worst part. I always thought that was going to happen. They are now even sending a weak side to Loftus to play because Jake wants to rest the box for about 3 weeks. And I'm actually quite disappointed, guys, because even the Lions in the Challenge Cup have sent their weakened side to Montpellier, where I really thought they stood a chance. So I don't know what your guys' opinions are, but this could end badly for the South African franchises.
I think I told you guys on our little WhatsApp group that I think the European Cup hosts or whatever are going to get really fed up with South Africa, because this is supposed to be the pinnacle of world rugby on club level. They deem it higher than Super Rugby, and South Africa keeps sending a weakened side. So I think, and it's not just a new thing, because we did it last season as well. And it's embarrassing. I don't like it at all.
It is, because we spoke about it in the previous episode. It's just like you're throwing the points in the bin. Like, surely the Bulls don't have any hopes of winning the game against Bristol now with their weakened side, especially because Bristol beat Sale, and you're playing a weakened side against Union Bordeaux. That's almost two guaranteed losses in the Champions Cup already. While we were thinking, listen, the Bulls are prioritizing the Champions Cup this season, because Jake also said he's kind of prioritizing it. You're going for the victory every single time. So I don't understand the mindset when it comes to this. I still understood it when the Stormers did it earlier this season. Of course, we had a lot of box, but that was shortly after the World Cup. And since they've come back, we haven't lost a game. And I can't see us not. This is almost the business end. Like, you want to jump further ahead when it comes to the URC, and this is the business end of the season when it comes to Champions Cup to solidify your spot there. The Bulls are still in danger. Their pool is still very, very close. I do not understand why you would do something like this. Jake has got to explain himself a bit on this one.
Yeah, I think that Dobbo is the only one that's doing it properly. He did say that in an article I read that he wants to rest his players in March when there's no Champions Cup. So I think that Dobbo is probably the only South African coach that's giving us hope in the Champions Cup, because the Lions and the Sharks obviously play in the Challenge Cup. But in the Champions Cup, I think that they're giving us hope. The Stormers are giving us hope that they understand they're in the pool of death, and they actually do want to get out of said pool of death. So I think maybe Dobbo could be our saving grace. Not that anybody are Stormers supporters, but you never know.
Except for Devon, of course. But in case any of the viewers don't know, the coach or the franchises are obligated to give their Springbok players some rest, and they can do it throughout whatever period from now till about, I think it's end of March or even a bit further down the line. But they basically have to give their players about 4 to 5 weeks of rest, or the Springbok players. So this is why Jake has decided to choose now, because he thinks he can get away with it. And obviously this will even carry into the Lions game when we play them in the URC, which again, you cannot take it for granted, because the Lions are looking strong and they don't have any block players to rest. So they can come full strength at us. Well, I'm talking about the Bulls. So touching on what Brett said, there is a risk that World Rugby or whoever looks after the Champions Cup looks at this and says, are the South African franchises disrespecting this tournament? Are they actually needing to be in this tournament? And boom, there you go. We could be out of it before we've even won it. So,
it kind of feels like Jake just kind of threw some fuel onto the fire already. People already don't like the fact that the South Africans are in the European Championships and stuff, and it feels like we kind of misstepped the line on this one, acting like the Champions Cup isn't the be all and end all. Of course, I think it was in one of our first podcasts, Brett mentioned that the payout on the Champions Cup, there's no real payout on this, but there is a bigger payout on the URC. So you would understand if people focus on the URC, but you have to understand the fans' perspective of it, that we enjoy the Champions Cup. It's a new thing for us. We want to see our teams play against the Premier teams. We want to see our teams play against the top 14 teams and the sport really grow. But if you don't send your best players, we don't even really care about what. Like, I want to see Willie Leroux play for the Bulls. Now, I don't like the Bulls, but I want to see the big names play for the Bulls, especially against those teams. And then I'll actually support the Bulls. But now you're sending a bunch of nobodies, in my opinion, that I don't even know the name of, to play against, for instance, Union Bordeaux. I don't even care about the game now because I just know the Bulls are going to lose on home soil.
Mr. Conspiracy Theorist of the Year reckons that Jake White is now hoing a little cop out there because there must be some interest from down under for a new head coach. So what's the easiest way to get fired from the Bulls?
I don't know about that, but Brett always comes up with these conspiracies that sometimes turn out to be correct. So you can't write him off at that prediction. But you know what? At the end of the day, I always thought the Bulls were going to travel to Bristol with a weakened side. And I still believe if that side with an Ulrich Lowe, with Marcel Coetzee, if those guys can stick their hand up, obviously Devin Williams will come into the place of Willie Leroux. And so it's not like we're sending a bunch of like guys that don't know what they're doing. It's just if they can stick their hand up, I think there's a slight chance. But then you are coming to Loftus as well, and you're playing a side that's the top 2 in the top 14 in Bordeaux. And that's a tough game. I mean, Madosh coming back to Loftus, wanting to prove a point. It's gonna be tough. And then, like I said, the Lions. Obviously, the Stormers went and travelled well with their weakened side. Unfortunately, they didn't get it done against Leicester, but they put up a hell of a fight. But also touching a bit on the Lions, guys, they are sending up no Henku van Wyk, no Chichuka. They are sending some guys there that haven't really played as much this season. What do we think about the Lions' chances against Montpellier there in France with a bit of a weakened side?
So I'll go first. So Montpellier also, they have some injury concerns. So this might actually work out in the Lions' favor. I was checking today. The Montpellier is also not on a great run at the moment. The wins that they are managing to get is not pretty. So I think the Lions, if I have to back anybody with a slight behind the door chance, it will be the Lions.
Yeah, and I think overall the Lions are one of the stronger teams in the Challenge Cup at the moment. So if they lose one game against Montpellier, it isn't the end of the world necessarily for them in that tournament. But for the Bulls, there's a lot more at stake. That's why I still do not understand. And of course, we want to see the likes of Henku van Wyk travel and play in the top 14 game. But as I said, they are a bit stronger than the rest of the field. So having them out for 1 or 2 weeks, giving them a well-deserved rest really isn't the end of the world for the Lions necessarily. So
yeah, their team chemistry as it stands is actually quite decent. So regardless of who comes in and who doesn't, I think the Lions will do well. If they don't get the win, they'll still probably scrape by with a bonus point loss. But when JP Smith was on the show, he told us that each professional player is only allowed to play 32 games a year. I think it's 32, right? So regardless of when it's going to happen, it has to happen, and it's not just the South African teams. Every single team in the whole competition has to rest their players. But I just think the way the Bulls are doing it, it's the wrong thing. It's the wrong timing for the Bulls, I think.
Well,
I think
Brett, do you yeah?
Carry on.
No, I was thinking, do you think Dobbo might have done it as well if we didn't have as many injury concerns? Because I just feel if the Bulls really prioritize this first month, let's say start of January till the middle of Feb, and really got ahead of the pack, had enough points on the board when it comes to the URC, got at least one of these two victories, secured their spot in the Champions Cup, and then said, listen, okay, 3 weeks where we can almost afford it. We can surely scrape one win out of the three against easier teams when you have better opposition to play against. Surely that would have been the better decision, because I can't see the reasoning behind two of your most important games in one competition and then a derby against the Lions. Like, that is not good decision making.
Yeah, so all I can really think of, and this is really all I can come up with in my head, is Jake White might want to have his box in his side when the Stormers, Sharks, and or Lions don't have theirs. So when the Stormers come down to Loftus to play the Bulls, Jake can play a Stormers side with his box, and Dobbo doesn't have his.
And still lose.
I'm not going to comment because I can't. But that could be his reasoning. Now, is that smart? I get it, but I agree with you that these are two games that are must win in the Champions Cup, and it's a Lions team that I will repeat myself. You cannot underestimate them. When you look at them, they look like a team. And as we all know, in the sports of rugby, if the Lions in 2016, they surprised everyone. They had no names. It was Faf de Klerk. Obviously, Mr. Burns knew Franco Mostert back then, and he knew what he was about. But they were a team that we didn't really know yet, and they really just gelled well together, and that's what earned them their spot in the Springboks. So that's the only reasoning I can think of. I don't know if you guys think it's like you've already said it's not the right reasoning, but you somewhat understand, or do you think it's just fully not correct?
No, I like your logic there. That does add up, if you will. But going back to what we said just now about the Stormers, and pre-season, Stormers had a long list of injuries. So in order for the current guys that are gelling well now, that won't necessarily always be in the starting lineup, I think what will help the Stormers is when those guys now need to be rested, they wouldn't have been in the starting lineup from the start anyway if the other guys weren't injured. So I think when those guys then replace them, I think it'll be a good swap, because then those guys, when they do get to come back, they'll come back to the bench and they wouldn't necessarily come back to the starting lineup where they have been playing because of the injuries of the starters. So I think it's a bit of a blessing in disguise for the Stormers, but I still don't think the Bulls' timing is the right one when it comes to this specific weekend now. They have 2 weeks in a row where they could actually make inroads, climb up that World Club ranking.
Stamp of authority.
Yes, and stamp of authority. Yeah, I agree.
I have a question for you guys. So the thing that we spoke about is the outsiders or the people that don't like the Saffers will already have a problem with this. If you have to put yourself in their shoes, how would you feel watching this, having the South Africans play in a tournament, but having it look like they don't even care, they don't even send their strongest team? So let's play a bit of devil's advocate. Do you think there is merit to them being mad at South Africans for almost joking around between the two tournaments? Because we know you can't prioritize both, but you can really put up a fight to win both. But it looks like the South African teams just kind of want to throw one away the whole time.
Yeah, we can't be upset if these other clubs are upset at this, because, like we said, this is, in my opinion, the biggest club competition there is, because it's the best of the clubs in Europe, and you want to win it. I mean, a lot of people in this country follow soccer or football, as you want to call it, and the Champions League is the biggest thing to win, and it's a direct It's the same thing in rugby. So I'd be upset because you want to play the best. Obviously, you may feel like, oh, they've sent a weakened side so we can beat them. But deep down, you're still going to be disappointed not to see superstars come to your country and play.
Yeah, from
Yeah,
a fan's perspective.
Yeah, if they want to be upset, they can be, because they just need to remember that who's the world champions, and you will bow down to the Saffers. I don't care how your feelings are feeling and how your mommy tucks you in at night. That has nothing to do with us. So if you want to be sad about South Africa not sending their stronger side, that's on you. We do not give a flying. Okay, maybe they do, but I don't. So yeah, suck it up, Buttercup.
Yeah. Well, gents, just to quickly wrap it up, we won't spend too much time on this specific topic that I'm about to mention, so we can wrap up. But we've heard now that Munster have lost 2 locks now, 2 of their best locks, in my opinion.
The 2 best players.
Literally. Jean Klein is out for the rest of the season with an injury. And obviously, Achia Snyman injured and then going to Leinster at the end of the season. Just your quick thoughts on that, and how is it going to impact Munster?
I mean, losing your 2 best players, they've just dropped down to zebra level. They've just become the epitome of irrelevance in world rugby. Like, how can you be the defending champions of the URC and then lose your World Cup champions, like, in the next season? I think officially I'm saying Munster will have the worst title defense in the history of title defenses. Like, they won't even be a threat come business end of the season.
This is where I absolutely 100% agree with you, because the way that Munster plays is they like stealing line-out balls. I mean, John Klein is the line-out stealing guru. They like playing off of their 2 Saffers in the locks. It's almost their whole game plan. And no, yes, don't come at me. I know it's not their game plan. I'm saying it's almost like their whole game plan. But the fact that those 2 aren't playing, it's going to make a massive, massive switch. And I don't see them having the depth to even come close to filling those 2 positions. They do have reserve locks, obviously, but it's not gonna help them.
The thing is, just like, imagine going into the year, right? And you're so excited, and then realizing you're a Munster fan, you're defending champions, yet you're still doing bad this season. You already got the wooden spoon for the worst game of rugby that this season will ever see. And the next couple of seasons, that game against Leinster was worse than watching a Prem game. Then you hear the news you're losing Erge Snyman, who they all love.
To their biggest rival.
To your biggest rival. Like, imagine the Stormers losing someone of that significance to the Bulls. Never forgive them. And then losing John Klein, also your World Cup winner, due to injury. Like, imagine being a Munster fan. I'm not even trying to banter. That is horrible.
But as like, if you have to put yourself in a Munster shoe, so Erge Snyman has played more caps for the Boks than he has for Munster, because that oak has been so injury prone for Munster. I don't think they might consider it a loss because of the stature of player, but he hasn't played a lot for Munster. And the fact that Munster has kept him on their books, kept like re-signing him after knowing that he plays 2 games and he's injured for 9. That's massive. Then for Erge to say, you know what, I'm going to the opposite. That's massive.
Yeah, well, Brett, I'm staying in that. I'll keep a guy on my books that I know brings me the title at the end of the year, because he was brilliant playing against the Stormers in that final. He basically won them that game. He was absolutely sensational. And if I'm not mistaken, they didn't. It's not Leinster poached him. I don't think they offered him a new contract. So he just went to his rivals. He said, stuff it, boom. I would love if he all of a sudden became like the most un-injury prone player and just like plays week in, week out, puts in shifts, doesn't care.
Scores a brace against Munster.
Those 4 tries in that rivalry. That rivalry is a ball fest. You can't afford to score tries.
I think Achia will spread his legs like a majestic giraffe and score a few against Munster, I'm sure of it. But gents, what we can take away from this is Bulls, pull up your socks, please. Can we please not make an embarrassment of ourselves? I beg. I was so proud of you in the beginning of the season, and now I'm like doing this. And obviously, Munster not looking good with their injury list, and Casual with the bold prediction that this will be the most disgraceful title defense of all time. But ladies and gents, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, comment something if you want us to chat about it. We'll listen to you. Thank you so much. And it is set for some unscripted out.
Join us on Spotify. Okay, bye.